Good evening and welcome to the July 17, 2019 legislative session of the Penfield Town Board. I'll officially call the meeting to order. I'll ask that everyone please rise for the pledge. And please remain standing after the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would just like to take a moment and ultimately ask for a moment of silence. Tom Falk, who was a member of our Parks Recreation Advisory Board, served on a number of the master plans for that plan over the years, was chair of that committee and a confidant to the Recreation Department for many, many years, not to mention all of the other support that he provided throughout this community. Tom was a gentleman. Tom was an individual that he knew everybody's name, knew a lot about everyone, and was just a friend to everyone. So I would just ask that we, in his memory, just take a moment of silence. Thank you. I'll ask our clerk to please call the roll.
Cole. Here. LaFountain.
Here.
Metzler. Here. Moore.
Here.
Quinn.
Here. The first order of business this evening is a public hearing to consider adoption of the updated design criteria and construction specifications. I'll ask the clerk to please read the legal.
To consider adoption of an update to the town's design and construction. The legal notice was published in the Penfield Post on June 27, 2019, posted on the town's website and town clerk bulletin board. No postcards were mailed due to this being a town-wide function.
Great, thank you very much. And Mr. Horowitz, is this properly before the board?
Yes, it is.
All right, Mr. Valentine, our town engineer, director of planning, he and his staff have worked on this particular document and is going to give a high level. And then, Mark, also, if you would include what you did by way of providing information out to developers, builders, engineers, et cetera.
Will do. Thank you, board. Thank you, audience. This has been kind of a long time in coming. I say, as the supervisor highlighted, kind of taking the work of many that have gone into this. This is PRC, DPW, building department. Many departments added their comments into this. But basically, this is typically most people are used to our town code that kind of deals with zoning, that kind of deals with a lot of more of the everyday functions of the town. This specifically gets into more of the development side of things. So it deals with installing new roads, new sewers, that type of information. So as part of this, we did email off. We have an annual list we send off to engineers and developers as we adopt the planning board schedule, have new updates. We send that off to them each year. So I think I counted 75 engineers, developers we emailed it off to and said, here's our updates. I gave them the highlight version, that's in the first couple of pages you have. We posted the rest of it online. So I've heard back from a couple, said they're interested. I either emailed it to them or pushed them to the website, which is available under the agenda for tonight's meeting. So as the supervisor indicated, I'll kind of run through a high level. Obviously, feel free to interrupt me as it goes along if you have questions or want a deeper dive into that. Give a little background on why we're proposing the changes, and then obviously take input from the audience and the public from there. So as we go through this, obviously I'm not going through every word change formatting. We did a lot of that stuff. I'm just going to be highlighting the major categories of things we changed or updated or policies we're looking to propose forward. So kind of skipping right into, and you may want to go to the cover page, the deeper stuff's in there. Section 3, that deals with submission requirements. So as you're making submission for new development, new building, home, other stuff, you get into talking about plat maps and grading plans and other stuff with that. Most of that stuff we were comfortable with. We basically added new requirements for green infrastructure. So that's something that comes from EPA and the New York State DEC that has new requirements that falls on the town to review as an MS4, and therefore falls to engineers and developers to make sure that those are properly incorporated into their documents and into their submissions. So we just added some additional verbiage into that section to highlight those. Section 4 talks about special districts. So lighting districts, intensified Recreation district sidewalks, the only thing we added was a new section for special improvement districts. This is something we've been working with the board on for a couple of years now. As we have new developments, all new developments are required to treat their own stormwater on site. So you have a stormwater pond, you have the infrastructure that goes with that, and then talking about the maintenance of it. So everyone in town pays a town-wide drainage fee, so that handles the functionality of the pond. But as a new development comes in and they want a subdivision sign, they want flowers, they want something else with it, this special improvement district is created at the time their development is approved, and then that creates a taxing line, so those residents only within that district or that neighborhood are paying for the betterments that they're seeing. If it's mowed once a week, if it, wants the subdivision sign or something else, as I had said, those residents are paying for it, and it's not coming out of, the rest of the tax base for that. Going down into construction requirements, as we take letters of credit for new developments, basically it's a surety to the town as developers are building that they install things properly, we inspect them, and then before we take ownership of it, make sure the inspections are in place, we hold money. So if something happened, we have the money and the wherewithal to go in and make the repairs, updates as needed. So as part of that section, we added the cleaning of the pond to that letter of credit list. We've had it, we've always kind of implemented it, but just want to make sure that, we've got things on the books as, as we're utilizing them or implementing them for developers. And also a requirement, and again, we've implemented it for years, that there's an automatic renewal clause in that letter of credit. So even after a year, if the project's done, great, we'll complete the letter of credit, give them the money back. If it's not quite complete yet, that it automatically renews for another year, just to make sure that, again, we retain that money and have that coverage for it. Under the town inspection fees area, we had language in the past that we had Saturday inspection hours and after-hour inspections. We've no longer offered that service, so we're just taking that section out and removing some of the language, basically saying the DPW was available, and I can flip to the section, I think, 7 to 3:30, and then, the town hall inspections are from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. So just tried to update and clarify the hours of inspections, the requirement, call 24 hours ahead to schedule those, but we don't offer after-hour inspections anymore. We don't offer holidays and weekends on that, so developers need to plan accordingly for their scheduled inspections on that. Further down into section 5.6 was the point of clarification, and we've always had the question, we have in our development specs that construction for new development, new homes, buildings is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Friday and 8 to 4 on Saturday. We've always had the question, well, if I'm a homeowner and I'm, adding a deck onto my house or I'm doing something different, does that cover me as well? So we added some clarification saying, obviously, if you're a homeowner, you're working on your own house, you're doing repairs, as many of us do, you have to work on, evenings, you work on the weekends to do repairs to your house. You're not held to that 7 to 7. You are held to our, our normal hours of noise ordinance, so the noise ordinance would apply, but it adds a little clarification for the building department. As people say, well, he was mowing his grass at 9 p.m. or he was doing, maintenance on his house at 8 p.m. He was outside of those hours. Just added clarification of that residents can obviously work on their own homes and do, regular maintenance as long as they're in compliance with the noise ordinance. Skipping down still further, 5.8. Again, with the letter of credit, now with the DEC, we have what is an NOI, so notice of intent to start construction. So that is required before they begin construction. And then now this is NOT, is the notice of termination. So in order to close that out, it gets it off of the DEC's books. They don't have to pay an annual fee to keep that up, but it also gets it off our books. So every project we have out there, basically, I won't say it counts against us, but there's a running tab. So we need to monitor and keep on track of all these projects. So as the DEC comes and does an audit of us, they're going to say, you've got 30 projects that are on, have a notice of intent in. You need to show us that you've been monitoring those sites, you're keeping track of them. I've heard that there has been issues that the developer has died, and if the NOT was not signed by the developer and closed out, it just kind of stays in perpetuity. So we're adding that as a line just to make sure that we keep up on it. The project's done before they get their letter of credit back, same as anything else that's signed, that's completed, and that just keeps it, cleans that up so it's not hanging out there or the person moves and we can't contact them in the future. Moving ahead to 514, topsoil sales. The way our code reads right now, it has it as an engineering item. My experience with the board, it's always come to the town board for at least that initial review and, bring the developer in, have them come to the board to a work session, talk about issues, concerns, noise, dust, the typical things that residents would have. So we're proposing to change this to be a town board action. The permit would be issued by the town board. If there's no issues, basically a renewal or an update to that could be done administratively by staff after that. But that initial, hey, this is ABC development, we have excess topsoil in our development, we want to have that sifted, we want to sell it off the site, keep that would come in before this board at a work session. You'd work through any logistical issues with them and then, issue the permit if it's deemed proper. 516, safeguarding pedestrians and utilities. This is just an update to meet the state standards. So as the state updates their code, we try to keep up to date and, reference the state codes that we keep up with those. 522, requirements to obtain a building permit. We've got many items to get your building permit, the submission materials. One of the things we haven't had, and I think it's timely or necessary, is to add a footing elevation certificate. Not every community has it, but some have it, that requires a developer to certify that the elevation of his footing is at the elevation that it should be. That may not sound like a major issue, but as we have building inspectors that go out there, they look down in the hole, it's 9-10 feet deep, and they're making sure it's the proper width, making sure, the rebar is in there, making sure it meets the right dimensions, it's got the drainage. But it's very hard to look down in a hole and say, is that 8 feet, is that 9 feet? And then we've had some developers that have hit rock or hit something and then just said, well, close enough, and then they just start building up out of the ground there. Now the house ends up being 3 foot higher than the house next door. So we end up chasing it from thereafter and try to work out drainage and how do you get the swale to fit in, and the neighbors got water running on their property. So this is an additional requirement we're proposing to put in there, that they got to certify that footing elevation is plus or minus 6 inches, that they're within tolerances for that footing, know that the house will be at the right finished floor elevation, and provide that before the footing certificate is issued, and they can continue constructing from there. 523, again, we've had questions about topsoil, what's required for topsoil. We've always required 6 inches be put on a lot, but we've not required how much rock can be in it, does it need to be sifted topsoil, and then what is the establishment of grass on a lot. So we're just adding, again, a little bit of clarification to help the building department, as they're out there, working through these issuing of a C of O, that, make sure the proper grass growth is there. Falling under DEC regulations, typically they want 80% lot coverage is kind of their general rule of thumb. If 80% of the parcel is covered by grass, it's considered stabilized. We're kind of matching those requirements with that. 6.2, design basis. This is, again, something we've enforced and had in place, but want to make sure that it's out there. As requiring is developers come in and do their parcel, they extend the sanitary sewer pipes and manholes to their nearest property line or to the next property line in line. As each person kind of does their part and brings it to their property line, then the next developer can pick it up and then take it to his. So again, it's something we've enforced. It's something that we've had in there. We were just adding, some additional clarification to make sure that, that's in place and, that's, done properly with that. Section 7, sanitary sewers, under 7.2, design requirements. We are getting more requests and have had a few installations of low-pressure sewers. So you have an E1 pump in your house. It's privately owned. Want to add clarification to understand that the town is not going to take ownership of that E1 unit in the home. Similar to what we do with gravity sewers, we'll own from the clean-out and the main down the road. We'll make sure the main is open, flushed, and flowing. But if you have issues with your E1 unit on your property, that's the homeowner's requirement. But as we get into further reaches of the town and get a little further away from where gravity sewers are, we're going to see more regulation or more concern about these low-pressure sewer systems. So we're just adopting new regulations to make sure that everybody's using the same fittings, everyone's using the same pumps, making sure everything is standardized. So if we have to go out there and do some maintenance on it, we're not dealing with different fittings or different pipe sizes or different materials, as we go out and do maintenance in the future on those. 7.3, we just updated some current pipe materials, connections, fittings that, just trying to keep up with the current trends on that. 7.7, pump station equipment, we're adding a requirement for a backup generator. This is on pump stations that are to be dedicated to the town. So if you want us to take ownership of it, it's for a regional pump station. We're requiring a backup generator. We've been retrofitting a lot of our existing pump stations to add a backup generator on it. As recently we've had some of the windstorms, the sewer department's running out there with generators in the back of the truck and trying to connect and pump down those sections and, make sure that those are meeting that the needs of the residents in the area. So we're going back and retrofitting to have these generators on there. The power goes out, the generator automatically kicks in. It's hooked up to gas in the area, so it's no need to fill with diesel fuel or oil or anything else. Runs off natural gas, will automatically kick in, keep the pump station running, and not have to worry about it having any sewer issues, despite lack of power. Storm sewers, 8.2, added a little clarity to the requirements for downspouts and sump pump discharges. Again, the new DEC regulations, in the past, we've required all downspouts be connected to storm pipes and go out to the street and tie into the main of the street. A lot of the new DEC regulations wants to get back to recharge in the lawn, have things go to splash block. So people say, well, okay, well, how far from the property line do I have to discharge my pipe? Excuse me, where how does that discharge? So we're talking about impact to your neighbor's property, how far from the property line your downspout extender should go, but also clarifying that we still want sump pumps to tie in. So that's kind of the one nuisance, even on a dry day, depending on where you are. If you have high groundwater, if you have a spring or something else, the sump pump could run on today when it's today we had a little bit of rain, but a hot, dry day, you could still have the sump pump run. I think most people are understanding when it rains and a little water comes off and they may have a little puddle in the side yard from, runoff of the house, but, when the sump pump's pumping, on a dry day, that ends up kind of being a nuisance. Erosion, 8.6, erosion control, adding some clarity, allowing the engineering department to issue stop work orders. Currently, as our code is written, stop work orders are issued, they're lifted by this board, knowing that you guys meet, once a week or every 2 weeks in a work session situation. There's been need in the past that, if the person, after several reminders, their silt fence is down, the road is muddy, they're not quite keeping the site up to snuff in the development phase, we give them a reminder. It would be helpful to be able to issue a stop work order, say, hey guys, we're serious, you need to clean up the site, you need to make sure it's meeting regulations. They could have it cleaned up in 2 hours or half a day. We can go back, verify, say, yep, we agree, it's cleaned up, lift the stop work order, and then, off they go, rather than making them wait 2 weeks for something that, hopefully could be done in an hour or half a day or somewhat shorter time period than that. 8.8 is just some update to new materials and technology. And again, I know I'm going through this quickly here, but all this stuff, if you're watching at home, is online. I've highlighted it, in yellow on the different sections, highlighted those categories of those updates for that. Moving on to water, fire, and protection, section 9.1. This came from requirements from the building department and the fire marshal, updating our requirements for hydrant locations to match the Monroe County Water Authority standard, and also adding a requirement for lock boxes for new buildings. So they've got opportunities that they can use their universal key, open it up, and then they can get access to Siamese connections or the buildings as needed if there's a fire situation. Roadway systems, 10.11. This is relocating the required trees. So our street tree policy requires 2 trees per lot. This is relocating them onto the backside of the sidewalk. So still keeping and trying to reestablish some of the trees in that, but we've had them in kind of what we call the tree lawn area between the gutter and the sidewalk. But being in the right-of-way, basically, they are owned by the town technically if they're in the right-of-way. So, if there's issues with them in the future and everything else, it may fall to the town. So we're saying we'd still like the tree line look to the street, but if you put it on the back side of the sidewalk, it's now the homeowner's responsibility. The homeowner can, decide if they want the tree, plant more trees if they want, but just a change to that. 10.12, landscape cul-de-sacs. Again, this is something we've been kind of going back and enforcing, is taking out the landscape cul-de-sacs. We've had a lot of maintenance of those, for the town to send a mower in down one street just to mow around a cul-de-sac and then come back out. I know the board has worked with a couple of neighborhoods. We've gone back in and either paved those, or the neighbors have committed to mowing them themselves, but we've, backed off of, weekly or regular maintenance of those. So we're just taking them out of our requirements for that. Sidewalks, section 11.4, adding language to meet the current ADA regulation standards. So this is those truncated domes. So as you come to the end of a handicap ramp, you see the bumps at the end of the handicap ramp. Technically, if the bumps are sheared off, so we've done ones, we've stamped them in the past, or they've been like a plastic inset. If those get sheared off, you're technically longer in compliance. So we're going to have to go to a cast iron thing, so it's actually cast into the sidewalk, and you'd have a cast iron plate at the bottom of it with these truncated domes that would identify that you're coming to a street, you're about to cross a busy intersection, and give somebody that's blind or low vision, that alert that they're about to enter a dangerous situation. Section 12, under water quality, 12.2, we just lowered our requirement for necessary to treat an impervious area. Currently, we say if you're 10,000 square feet and above, you have to do some treatment to that, being in the Arundequite Creek watershed, so the IWCC. We follow those regulations and enforce those. This board has adopted those regulations. That's down to 6,000 square feet. So if somebody comes in and says, I'm adding a 6,000 square foot parking lot, 7,000, whatever, they've got to do some water quality to treat that additional impervious area and the runoff that comes off of that. Section 13, street tree installation. We've just gone in and, working with our landscape consultant, updated our tree inventory. We have a recommended list of trees. We, coming from many years ago, we have ash trees on there. Obviously, we know there's the emerald ash borer blight that's out there. There's some evergreen issues with that, so he went through and did some updates on those to reflect the trees that, have had some issues in recent years. So our updated or recommended list of street tree plantings matches what the current conditions are. Skipping ahead, section 15, street lighting. 15.2, updating standards to require LED lights. I know we're going through some conversions of our lights from either high-pressure sodium or metal halide to LEDs, more efficient with that. Obviously, you actually get some better lighting of the area for, lower wattages. So we've been recommending those, and the boards have been working with the developers to do that, but just wanted to formalize that and make sure that that's in and part of the requirements. And then subsequently to that, 15.3, a lot of times we'll get kind of, I call it a one-line diagram, kind of shows the light pole and then just kind of a loop line to the next pole, to the next pole. As we were taking ownership of these intensified lighting districts and people are putting the lights within their development, we're just asking for a little bit more detail on the design side, where the handholds go, where do you pull the wire, where's the conduit, just so as we're going back later on and our lighting department, has to go in and replace lights and, find where the conduits are. If there's issues, they've got a little bit better design detail on what went into that. Section 16 on parking lots, we're adding a maximum cross slope of 5%. This is just if you get steeper than that, your car door slams shut on you, so that's kind of an industry standard that your door will hold. So just as people are in there and trying to get in and out of their car, you're trying to pull in groceries or children or something else, you just don't want the car door slamming as you're trying to get in and out. So it's just a cleanup of a standard on that. Lighting, adding verbiage, again, we've been requiring dark sky compliant fixtures for years, but again, just update our standards to meet that. 16.7, this came out of the mixed use development manual, the requirement for pedestrian circulation plan. So that gets into They've got shared bikeways, they've got walkways, they've got sidewalks, show how it integrates together as well as the neighboring property. So show as when the next parcel is developed, how is your sidewalks, how is your walkability going to integrate with what they do as well as, kind of what exists already. And then the last section, under retaining walls, currently 17.1, we have regulations for a 6-foot high wall requires a PE stamp and design. We're lowering that regulation down to 4 feet. We've seen other communities do that. So if you're building a wall higher than 4 feet, it needs to have, design behind it and a PE stamp with that. So I know I threw a whole lot of stuff out there fairly quickly. Obviously, the board, we've had discussions prior to this. This is not the first time you're hearing this. Say this has been many years of work of, kind of updating this and, bringing new regulations and new standards forward, working with other departments. But if the board has other questions, comments.
All right. Thank you, Mark. As always, I know there was a lot there, and again, the board did have the opportunity to review this on multiple occasions with you, and thank you for making sure that it was on the website and following up with that group of 75-plus contractors, developers, engineers, so that they had that information. My guess is we're one of the few towns that do that, so thank you very much for that. I'll ask the board, any additional questions for Mark, please?
Mark, just one question for you. I know that as the county, state, federal, primarily the state, as they change regulations and policies annually, what process does the town or town board have to go through to sort of update the manual? Does it sort of comply, is there language in this policy that will then comply with changes to state code, or do you have to sort of come back each year?
No, we've tried to say the latest version of the MUTCD, which is the Manual of Traffic Control Devices. So we've tried to, incorporate some of that language in here. So as they update, basically we say we're going to comply with the state standards. So hopefully, unless they change something wholesale or there's a major shift, if they just update their standards, then ours should, transition with that.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Rob. Additional questions for Mark?
Just one request, Mark. As you were presenting and I was looking through the manual, can you have staff check the table of contents? It's not conforming to the draft.
We've got a little bit of cleanup, and I want to make sure, I noticed, and as I was pulling this together, the page numbers were not on the bottom, and my apologies. Dependent upon the comments we get back, things may shift a little bit, so we've kind of been moving stuff around. So my apologies for that, and we'll clean that up. But if the board's comfortable with this, dependent upon feedback we get from the public, we've kind of got to go back and do one last formatting. Here's the sections. We've just been moving pieces and parcels around, so we'll update the table of contents. We'll add page numbers at the bottom. So my apologies tonight for confusion.
Okay. Other questions or comments? All right. I'll ask the clerk, has anyone signed up to speak on behalf of this particular matter?
No, they have not.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address this matter? This is specifically with regards to the design criteria. Ask any questions or any clarifications. Okay, seeing none. Mark, I would just ask anything in addition to what you shared with us tonight that you believe is pertinent to this particular public hearing.
No, I appreciate the opportunity from the board. I say I've heard back from a few engineers that they wanted to see it, have not received any comments as of yet, but obviously we'll share with the board if and when we receive any comments from developers, engineers, responses to what we've proposed, and then, obviously follow back up with the board on, at a future work session, based on whatever information we get, and then, decide how to proceed from there.
Okay, very good. And board, one last opportunity for questions or comments to Mark. Okay, seeing none, I'll declare this public hearing officially closed. Mark, thank you to you and your team, PRC, that put all this together. I know a lot of work, and so thank you for that effort. It is important, not only for the town, but the folks that have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. So thank you for that. All right, we'll move on with our agenda. We'll start with communications and announcements, and I'll recognize the town clerk.
Hunting and trapping licenses go on sale Thursday, August 1st, 2019. Hunting and trapping guides will be available when you purchase your license. The guides can also be viewed online at www.dec.ny.gov. The license year runs from September 1st, 2019 through August 31st, 2020. Deer management permits, DMPs, will be available via instant lottery from August 1st, 2019 through close of business day, October 1st, 2019. Lifetime license holders should receive their annual tags prior to September 1st. You do not have to have your tags with you to apply for your DMPs. Also, Penfield residents in need of a new or updated passport are invited to attend Passport Night in Penfield on Thursday, July 25th, from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at the Penfield Town Hall, 3100 Atlantic Avenue. This service comes to Penfield through the partnership of Monroe County Clerk's Office and myself. For more details, visit the town's website at penfield.org under the Town Clerk Department, or call me at 340-8629.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good evening, everyone. While many summer activities are underway, it is important to remember that the Penfield Ecumenical Food Shelf is active all year round and always needs the community's help in keeping their shelves full of inventory. There are many ways to help our community families who are in need during the summer. Please log on to penfieldecumenicalfoodshelf.org for an updated listing of items currently needed. The Ecumenical Food Shelf is available every Wednesday at 1618 Jackson Road, right here behind the Town Hall complex. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Mrs. Messel.
I have one announcement this evening. The town of Penfield, along with Parenting Village Community Organization, are once again teaming up to host the 7th Annual Flower City Family Fest, held on July 28th from 2 to 6 p.m. at Rothfuss Park. Summer Bash is a way of creating a fun-filled opportunity for parents and children to connect to one another while simultaneously learning about the many wonderful family-related businesses and services that our community has to offer. For details and info about this event, please visit their website at www.ourparentingvillage.org. That's all I have for this evening.
Thank you very much. This coming Monday, the 22nd of July, the Shepherd Home will be hosting their 9th annual golf tournament at Penfield Country Club. If anyone has an interest, they still have the opportunity to play. If they want to find out more information about this great facility, the Shepherd Home is a comfort care facility that provides compassionate end-of-life support not only to their residents but their families as well. The Shepherd Home is funded strictly through donations, memorials, and fundraisers like this golf tournament. And for more information, please log on at shepherdhome.org, or you can call them at 381-0890. Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The Penfield Players have announced that their Summer Reader Theater will be held on Saturday, July 27th at 6 p.m. This year's performance is entitled Story Theater, adapted by Paul Sills. Story Theater is intended for children and parents in a picnic-style venue at Veterans Memorial Park Amphitheater. Families and friends are encouraged to bring lawn chairs, blankets, and a picnic dinner. Admission is free, and for additional details, please contact the players to go at penfieldplayers.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Cole.
Hi, my next community chat will be on August 20th, Tuesday, August 20th, at 5:30 to 7 in the new book area at the Penfield Library. And speaking of library, there was another longtime volunteer in Penfield who passed away on July 1st, and that was Hank Dixon, Henry Hank Dixon. He was on the library board for a number of years, and I'm liaison to the library. So we discussed that last night as well. He was a great guy. He was very active in Penfield. He worked at Kodak for a number of years as well, and he passed away on July 1st. So we want to send our deepest sympathy for the family, and just mention that for a lot of people out there might not have seen the obituary that we lost Henry Dixon on July 1st. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We are next at public participation, 2 opportunities to address the board on any matter. You can do that if you're here in the auditorium. You can call in at 340-8771, or you can log on at penfield.org. And I'll ask the clerk, has anyone signed up to speak this evening?
No, they have not.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board on any matter? Again, there are two opportunities at this time, and again at the end of the agenda. Okay, seeing no one, we'll move on to additions and deletions to the agenda. I'll recognize Councilman Moore.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make one addition to tonight's agenda. It is Resolution 19T-165, entitled Authorization for Supervisor to Sign Retainer Agreement for Legal Counsel. Thank you.
Great,
I
thank you.
second that.
It's been moved and seconded, and that will be under new business number 165. We have the June 5th, 2019 minutes before us. Would entertain a motion of approval for those minutes.
I move that the minutes of June 5th be approved.
I'll move, or second.
It's been moved and seconded. I'll ask, are there any questions or comments about those minutes? Seeing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
5 ayes.
Thank you. Since our last meeting, has the town board, town attorney, or town clerk received any petitions?
No.
Okay, seeing none, move on to resolution by function, starting with law and finance, please.
Authorization for fire marshal to support the town of Webster with inspections.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the Town of Webster Fire Marshal's Office has requested support from the Town of Penfield Fire Marshal with inspection of completed fire alarm systems at 1052 Waverton Circle, Building 3. Whereas the Town of Webster will hold the Town of Penfield and Fire Marshal's Office harmless for any liability, including attorney fees, resulting from the supporting inspection. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
5 ayes. Authorization to attend 2019 New York State Magistrate Court Clerk Conference.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the New York State Magistrates Court Clerk Annual Fall Conference has been scheduled at the Doubletree by Hilton in Syracuse from September 29th through October 2nd, 2019. Whereas the conference is designed to keep court clerks updated on changes in laws and procedures and provides educational opportunities for the attendees. Effective January 1st, 2019, under the rules of the Chief Judge, annual court clerk training is now mandatory. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion. Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
5 ayes. Setting a public hearing to consider issuance of a special use permit and preliminary and final site plan approval to allow a 95-unit apartment building at 1384 Empire Boulevard.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas an application has been received by the Penfield Town Board for the issuance of a special use permit and preliminary and final site plan approval pursuant to Chapter 250-5.9-B1 of the code to allow for the development of a 95-unit apartment building with associated parking and stormwater management facilities at 1384 Empire Boulevard in the LaSalle Landing Development District. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Penfield shall hold a public hearing at the Penfield Town Hall on August 7th, 2019 at 7 p.m. on said date to consider said application and to hear all persons interested in the question of the issuance of the special use permit and preliminary and final site plan approval for the development of a 95-unit apartment building with associated parking and stormwater management facilities at 1384 Empire Boulevard. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. See no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
5 ayes. Update to petty cash and clerk tax drawer allocations.
Moved.
Second.
Be resolved that petty cash policy established by the Penfield Town Board Resolution 66 of 1980 and last revised on January 2nd of 2019 with the adoption of this resolution continues to apply to all persons affected should have a copy of the policy so they may be familiar with it to ensure compliance. Be it further resolved that the following changes to the allocation of petty cash funds within the town are modified as follows. Town supervisor, the $100 is eliminated. Director of Public Works, the $200 is eliminated. Recreation Department, the $250 remains. Director of Finance, $200, and this is a new amount. And be it further resolved that the total cash appropriation for use in the cash drawers to be reconciled daily to cash out from the transactions in the office of the town clerk and tax receiver be distributed as follows. Town clerk drawer, $275. Receiver of taxes drawer, $275. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
5 ayes. Budget amendment and highway fund for services to Penfield Central School District.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the town board approved the Department of Public Works to provide various services for the Penfield Central School District. Whereas town crews will be completing the approved work this summer. And whereas the town board desires to have an up-to-date budget in relation to current appropriations and revenues. Now, be it further resolved that the 2019 budget be amended and approved. Under revenue, Penfield Central School District, $60,000. In appropriations, contracted projects in the amount of $60,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. Seeing no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
5 ayes. Budget transfer, highway machinery account.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the Director of Public Works requires a transfer in the machinery account for the rehabilitation of 3 truck boxes. And whereas the town board desires to have an up-to-date budget in relation to current income and expenditures. Now be it resolved that the following 2019 budget transfer be approved. From heavy-duty equipment in the amount of $45,000 to vehicle rehabilitation in the amount of $45,000.
Thank you. Discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
5 ayes. 2019 budget amendments for New York State Multi-Model Grant and New York State Extreme Winter Recovery in the Highway Fund.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas New York State Assemblyman Mark Johns was able to secure a multimodal grant in the amount of $50,000 for the resurfacing of Old Penfield Road. Whereas the town received an apportionment of the state's extreme winter weather recovery program in the amount of $37,026.11. Whereas the town board desires to have an up-to-date budget in relation to income and expenditures, now therefore be it resolved that the following 2019 budget amendment be approved for the highway fund. Under revenue, state aid multimodal program, $50,000. State aid other transportation for $37,026.11. Under appropriation, multimodal projects for $50,000, and state aid other transportation under appropriations for $37,026.11. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. I'd like to recognize and thank Assemblyman Mark Johns for being able to secure the grant funding for the multimodal grant. We started that project this week, and we're doing a lot of initial cleanup. We'll have the milling machine in next week, and we'll hope to have everything completed by about mid-August. So this will be a great improvement to that section of Old Penfield Road. Seeing no further discussion, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn?
Aye.
5 ayes. Resolution to appoint a hearing officer to conduct New York Civil Service Law Section 75 proceeding.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas the town has commenced a proceeding and requested a hearing pursuant to Section 75 of the New York State Civil Service Law. Whereas Section 75(2) of the New York State Civil Service Law requires that a hearing upon New York State Civil Service Law Section 75 charges shall be held by the officer or body having the power to remove the person against whom the charges are preferred, or by a deputy or other person designated by such officer or body in writing for that purpose. Whereas the town board has recommended the appointment of Alan Berry as a designated hearing officer. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Penfield appoints Alan Berry as hearing officer pursuant to Section 75 of the New York State Civil Service Law with respect to charges brought by the town supervisor, Tony LaFountain, on May 6, 2019, and authorizes the hearing officer to hear evidence, make a transcript of proceedings, and to issue a written report of his findings and recommendations to the town board. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. See no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Authorization for supervisor to sign a license and hold harmless agreement to allow a fence within a drainage easement at 19 Seton Court.
Moved.
Second.
Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Penfield hereby authorizes a supervisor to sign a license and hold harmless agreement for the owner of the property at 19 Seton Court to permit a fence to encroach on a drainage easement in the town of Penfield located at the same address, 19 Seton Court, in the form and substance acceptable by the Penfield town attorney.
Thank you. Discussion. See no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Authorization to maintain properties and assess the charges to the 2020 property tax bills.
Moved.
Second.
Whereas on December 16, 2015, the town board of the town of Penfield adopted a resolution to enact Local Law 3 of 2015 entitled, "A Local Law to Provide for the Codification of the Local Laws, Ordinances, and Certain Resolutions of the Town of Penfield into a Municipal Code to be designated the Code of the Town of Penfield." Whereas the purpose of the Code of the Town of Penfield includes, among other things, to provide for the safety, health protection, and general welfare of persons and property in the town by requiring the maintenance of such properties within the town. Whereas the owners of the properties at 19 Split Rail Run and 3057 Atlantic Avenue have failed to maintain subject properties in accordance with applicable code requirements. Whereas the town staff has continually requested the maintenance of subject properties by the owners, therefore, or thereof, with no result. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Penfield hereby authorizes the building code compliance inspector to have the properties appropriately maintained. Be it further resolved that the town board further authorizes that the cost of the maintenance and any necessary subsequent maintenance during the 2019 season be charged to the 2020 property tax bill of each property. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Authorization for supervisor to sign a contract with MRB Group for updated programming and site feasibility study for the town DPW facility.
Moved.
Second.
Be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized to sign a contract not to exceed $14,500 for services with MRB Group to provide updated programming and a site feasibility study for a town DPW facility at 1607 Jackson Road. This resolution and the proposal submitted by MRB Group shall constitute the contract. This agreement is to be reviewed and approved by the town attorney.
Thank you. Further discussion. Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Cole?
Aye.
LaFountain?
Aye.
Metzler?
Aye.
Moore?
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Authorization to adopt update to the Town of Penfield Recreation and Parks Master Plan.
So moved.
Second.
The Penfield Town Board Resolution on May 16, 2018 authorized the 2019 Recreation Parks Master Plan 5-year update. And therefore, the Master Plan Update Committee and the Recreation Director have reviewed and now recommended the final draft be approved by the Town Board as submitted to the committee. Now, the Penfield Town Board adopts this final Recreation and Parks Master Plan for a 5-year update. And this is all the resolution read, but any of the changes that were made, there were some changes made based on input from people coming to public participation, has been included and addressed in the master plan update, which you can find on the website. And I want to thank everybody. I served on the committee, but I served with all these residents and recreation staff, and I don't have all their names in front of me, but they know who they are, and we thank them very much for all their hard work in putting together this master plan. It was about a year's worth, but we did it in-house, which is very good. And Chris Bilo is a wonderful recreation director and chairman of this committee to get everything going, and got enthusiasm within the committee, and I hope everybody gets to take a look at the master plan and see what they think. And thank you, everybody, for participating.
Great, thank you. Further comments, discussion?
Yeah, I would just like to echo what Councilwoman Cole said. We all read the document. It's about a 90-page document. Has a lot of recommendations in there for future planning and making the programs better than they are today, and making our park system even better moving into the future. I think there were 9 or 10 residents. It was a resident-driven committee, which is always a good thing to get the community involved, the local community, residents here in Penfield. They put in a lot of time and effort, and certainly appreciate everything they did, along with the town staff with their efforts after hours, going through all the details of the document, not only with the town board, but also with the residents on the committee. So thank you very much to the residents and the town staff for everything they did.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes. Authorization for supervisor to sign recreation contracts.
So moved.
Second.
This authorizes the town supervisor to sign one recreation contract. It's for Preshido Kai Judo Club, and their instruction taking place in June through December of 2019.
Hiya. Ask for further discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Thank you. Is there any old business to come before the board this evening? Seeing none, we have a new business item. I'll ask the clerk to please read that resolution.
Authorization for supervisor to sign retainer agreement for legal counsel.
Moved.
Second.
Be it resolved that the town supervisor is hereby authorized to sign a retainer agreement with Andrew J. Schwab, Lynch, Schwab, and Gasparini, PLLC, for legal counsel pertaining to the litigation involving the Shadow Lake Golf Course property. Be it further resolved that said retainer agreement is to be reviewed and approved by the Penfield Town Attorney. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, ask for a roll call vote, please.
Cole.
Aye.
LaFountain.
Aye.
Metzler.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Quinn.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Great, thank you. This brings us down to our next public participation. I'll ask, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board on any matter? Seeing none and seeing no further business to come before the board this evening, the July 17th, 2019 legislative session of the town board will stand adjourned at 7:53 p.m. Thank you to Penfield TV. Thank you to everyone that participated this evening. Have a great evening.